Hello and welcome to another episode of the Simon and Friends podcast. I'm Simon Short. Joining me this week is Josh Lemonsain. Josh, welcome back in, man. How you doing?
I am doing pretty great because it's not football great related, but the Timberwolves are one up on the Spurs. They stole a road game. I've been into the Wild this postseason too, and they're down 0-2 to the Avs, so there's a little bit of struggle, but it's fun to be in the playoffs. It's fun to have teams in the playoffs. It feels like it's been a while. Not that, I mean, the Wolves have been there for every year recently, but either way, it's exciting.
Is the Wild hockey?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. See, I thought you were talking about like the book. Isn't that a book, Into the Wild? Is that what it's
Oh
called?
yeah, yeah.
Real,
No,
real
I
jolly tale of a adventurer.
right.
Um,
No, the book I'm currently into is a high fantasy that's 1,000 pages. So that we'll have to wait till I'm reading the Brandon Sanderson series, or I'm starting this one, the Stormlight Archive. So
See, it's the summer, so I'm officially cracking the comic books back open. My
oh,
daughter picked
nice.
one for me when she went to the library most recently. So, I'm reading yet another Fantastic Four book, which is like the fifth one in the last year for me. But she brought it, so
Sweet.
I'm here. Okay, this isn't
Right.
what you guys are here for. You want to hear more
No.
2026 NFL draft updates, right? Listen, all month, here's what's happening. A little programming notes on Simon and Friends podcast and over on Box Score Network YouTube channel. We're going to continue to trickle out 2026 draft content really for the rest of May. Different ways to look at this draft specifically, lessons that this draft taught us, lessons from the draft process, things that we valued going into the process, how those things may have changed coming out. So things we've learned about not just from the draft and the picks, but what happened over the course of the whole 2, 4, 6 month process, you want to call it. And then starting in June, we'll have a lot of fun summertime content, non-football, football, fantasy, draft stuff, a lot of different things. But we're still covering the NFL draft right now, 2026. And Josh is here, so you all know that means off-season power ranking update. And this is purely our 2.0 based on what happened in the draft. Our 1.0 last month was the coaching changes and roster changes from free agency, which gave us a weird list, especially in the top eight, looking at the collection of teams we thought, at least from a consensus point of view, who performed well in that period. Josh, I think we were a lot more aligned with a greater number of teams tonight,
Mhm.
but I also think we feel very differently about a few different teams. Like when we differed, it was by a lot. How did you view the draft big picture? And then how much do you think, like really thinking about the draft, really can help or hurt a team for their actual season? Like, how much does this rookie class really matter right now as you think about how good you think the teams are or how well you think their offseason went?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think at the first thing I'll say is that this class is kind of touted as not as good as some other classes. So I think that for all teams, everyone should kind of have slightly tempered expectations. But I think that, maybe I'm just giving into the hype a little bit, but I do think that the model for winning in the NFL is you have to pay a few players, a large percentage of your salary cap, but you also have to hit on draft picks. You have to have guys come in who can contribute on their rookie deals. You have to have guys that like just demand playing time to create competition at camp, and you have to have positions of need. You have to have depth. It feels like I'm saying you have to have everything, but that's kind of so it's not really great analysis. But I think you do have to kind of hit, because I know my Vikings, our big issue is we've had good coaching for the past handful of years, but one of the things that we just fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Part of the issue was there a lot of issues with his drafts in terms of who quote unquote hit, who quote unquote didn't hit, and there are a lot of other factors. You can bet on a guy's talent and it never comes to fruition for sure. But I think that when you look at the teams that are contenders more often than not, they have guys that either stick around or they're able to use in trade deals or they get paid elsewhere. They just know how to find the talent. So um, I don't think there's anyone in this draft really that stands out to me as like this is going to be a game changer from day one or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, but you do have to hit. And so I think that there's a team we kind of differ on the last page we'll get to. And I think part of the reason I dropped them from where I did was I feel like they did a little bit too much kind of value maneuvering and not enough like we're a good team. Let's get a guy that's here and go from there. So that's what I'll say about that. I think they do need to be contributors to an extent, whether that's this year or down the road in the case of some of the guys that are going to be not necessarily starting right off the bat, but
It's an interesting like dichotomy of the draft because in the draft you what you want, especially as a fan and media and people that do what we do, or somewhere in between, um, you want a lot of star players because that's fun to cover, right? That's fun to cover. That's fun to like dream about in your head, like your team going to get these star players. But in actuality, what you need in the draft, I think you joked on yourself that it sounded like you just needed everything. What you need is just the draft is like backfill your roster, and you hope you get have like one or two superstars along the way, whether that is draft or free agency or someone you drafted 8 years ago, just like being in their prime and being.
Mhm.
But what you would rather have in a string of like let's say five draft classes in a row is five doubles for in five draft classes, so like 25 good players, as opposed to like two all pros and then a bunch of garbage.
Right.
Because those other guys, that's going to set you up in a much better place. You're not going to be the team that has 100+ million in cap space for three off seasons in a row because you haven't drafted any good players that are worth keeping. So you're drafting, you're developing, you're retaining. Along the way, you hit on a quarterback. Along the way, you hit on an edge rusher. Along the way, you hit on a corner that changes your defense and you're off to the races, right? That's how you really try to win, I think. And so a lot of these teams are, I think a lot of my grades, I had a couple very high grades, I had a couple very low grades, but most of my grades were in that like B plus down to like a C plus. And I think all of those are like, hey, you did pretty good. You decent value, hit needs or at least identity pieces that your team needed. Um, and I can see your class when I look at the history on Pro Football Reference. I can see a vision. Four out of the seven names or five out of the eight names being bold in 3 years, meaning they're still on the
Yeah.
team and still playing, still contributing instead of the classes that it's like they're all unbolded in 2 years because
Yep.
none of the major team anymore.
Yep.
Um, all right, but this will be fun. This will be a good conversation. So let's dive down into it. I'm gonna pull up the ranking page for everybody. Reminder, what you're gonna see on the left-hand side is my ranking for my 2.0. In the middle, you'll see Josh's 2.0. On the right side, it'll become our consensus 2.0, but for now, you're going to see where we left off in the 1.0. So you're going to see where these teams are starting from because these mock draft or these mock drafts, I still have draft brain on these power rankings we build on throughout the off season or the in season. So we're building off of what we thought last month. All right. So as Josh said, like you guys can see, we both have the same 1 and 2. Carolina Panthers, New York Giants. You can see that the Panthers are starting at 2 from last month. The Giants are starting at 5. I gave both of those teams A grades, Josh. I really liked what Carolina did. Just I think I'm amassing good value at each spot, really. Going with the offensive lineman when you have questions there is a savvy move. And really good value in a guy in Monroe Freeling that I think can be like a really stud left tackle. It wasn't just, oops, we have an injured tackle, so we have to take the best guy. Or the best guy remaining. I think they saw good value on the board. They knew they have enough questions to support making the pick. Um, and then they also like did a little bit of everything else. They got a center that can potentially start because that was the last big like roster spot they were missing. They got a wide receiver they can maybe develop. They got a defensive tackle and a safety that can hit and add a little something to that defense they spent money on. So Carolina, I think, deservedly, like I said, I gave them an A. This just bumps them up one spot. That's all they could go up. But I think this was a really solid not only draft, but just roster building construction for them over the offseason. You get a linebacker, an edge rusher, um, you get a wide receiver, left tackle. You did a lot of good stuff in Carolina this offseason so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. It was an excellent draft for them. I would have been happy for the Vikings to take Monroe Freeling at 18. Would have been nice. He was available. We have an oft injured left tackle who's great. Darisaw is fantastic, but he gets hurt a lot. Imagine if we had an up and coming backup like Freeling. So that was a home run. And then I think the what nailed it for me was Sam Hecht. We talked about in the off-season rankings that Cade Mays going to Detroit was a big move, but that left a void in Carolina. Like Sam Hecht was a fifth round pick, but he's a second rated PFF or second highest graded PFF center last year. Grade wise, he had zero penalties last year. If you watch him, he had What did I write down? He's pretty fluid as a puller. He looks really legit, and I think he's going to be a nice piece there. And it was a position of need, and they just went they figured out how to get him at a good value. And then Brazel, the pick is a good one too. They're still, I feel like every year the the Panthers are drafting a receiver because they know they still need to get somebody to
Yep.
rise to that occasion. They're not sitting. They're not getting complacent. They're not saying, "Well, we got Tet last year, so we're fine." Right?
Hmm.
They're staying hungry, they're staying aggressive, and on the heels of a good offseason, they continued to hit home runs, or it feels like they hit home runs in the draft. And that was the easiest one on this, especially considering what the Rams did, which we'll talk about soon. So um, I 100% agree. A grade for sure.
All right, we're not going to go in depth on all of these. You guys can imagine, you guys can know why we moved them up. So, I mean, the Giants, you walk in with two top 10 picks and you pretty much hit on consensus for both of them. It's hard not to feel like they had a good draft. But what did you think of the move to trade Dexter Lawrence? And let's go ahead and speak on that for both sides real quick. Um, was that a move, Dexter Lawrence for the 10th overall pick? Was that good for both Cincy and New York, or did you really favor that for one team or the other?
I don't think I favored it for one team or the other. I think that, well, actually, no, I think I do because I think that the Giants have been desperate for an offensive line, and if they want to know what they have with Jackson Dart. I think
Hmm.
they needed to make a splashy move there. Now I know Mauigoa looks like he might be going to be playing at guard for them. But
Good. Hmm.
regardless, they needed offensive line help, and they got top 10 talent at offensive line in the draft. Plus Arvell Reese, who was a great pick for them at 5.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Dexter Lawrence is a great player, and I don't think you're always gonna. I don't think they're gonna be able to fully replace him. But I think for a team that's been starved for consistent offense, um, they're going for it in that regard. And I think that's good. So, but I also don't hate it for Cincinnati either. I think that they need all the defensive help they can get too. So that's not it's not necessarily bad for them, but I think the Giants look like the more savvy team after this one. I think maybe
I
just by a
said
little bit.
I said this on a few shows. I still think if Cincy knew Caleb Downs and or Ruben Bain would have been there at 10, I still think they would
Oh,
have kept the pick.
that's fair.
Um, but I think in all their scenarios they were worried they were going to run out of defensive players. But hey, it is what it is. And Lawrence is a good player if he's going to be healthy and still be the guy he was 2 years ago or so. All right, but those guys are going to move up for us. You have the Chargers bumping up. I gave the Chargers a solid B or B plus grade, but I thought the Ravens really hit it out of the park. Now you have them not in your top eight, so you actually have the Ravens moving down
Mhm.
from our 1.0 rankings, and I had them moving up from 6 to 3, as viewers can see there. What is your reason for Baltimore actually moving down? What weren't you a fan of here?
So I moved a couple teams up that I was a little bit more excited about. I wasn't planning on moving Baltimore down too much anyway.
Hmm.
Um, but the big number that stood out to me is 11 picks they had, and they drafted 0 centers. And when they didn't get Linderbaum in the offseason, they brought in Peter. I know they got Ione,
Hmm.
who will probably be a really good guard, and at face value, it's a great pick. You got to protect Lamar Jackson. And so getting offensive line in the first round for the Ravens was really smart. And they had so many picks and a lot of good value. Um, but just feels like a weird, like proverbial slap in the face. Like you're not going to even grab a single center. You have this many picks. You're not going to get a center. So that tempered my excitement for their draft. And then some other teams moved above them. So I think overall they did a good job. So
Yeah, we'll figure out where they land. I agree. I think they were one of the teams that maybe left the like biggest hole on their roster. And when you think about centers, I mean, I don't have over the cap pulled up right now, but at this point, it's not one of the positions that I think there are still a lot of workable names out there. Like I know Ethan Pocic from Cleveland's still out there, but he's coming off of another lower leg injury. Um, so then you're getting into like what teams backups can you trade something for, and then it just kind of gets messy. So there I do think they're one of the teams that left one of the biggest holes on their roster. So I'm okay with actually I have them moving up 3 spots. I don't know how far down I'd be willing to move them, but we'll sort it out here.
yeah,
So the Chargers got a bump for you.
that was more by
Um,
default than just because I moved the Rams out. So
Yeah, and the only reason I moved them down was just because of Baltimore. I think
yeah.
vaulting them. So same thing with the Raiders there. So we're both gonna have them pretty high. The
Mhm.
Rams, they went from 1 on our consensus 1.0 board to 6 on my board and 5 on your board. Um, So similar feelings there where I just had Baltimore above them, pushed them down another spot. But talk to me for you with the Rams and them going with the Ty Simpson pick and just what you
Yeah.
think they left on the table for that.
Yeah, that was the main thing for me was the Ty Simpson pick. I mean, I get that coaches have egos in the NFL, and if they like a guy, like they say, "Well, screw it, we'll get a guy here." But then you hear about the secret meeting that McVay had with Ty Simpson's family and how Les Snead knows Ty Simpson's dad, and it just feels very much like, hey, you do me a favor, you take him in the first round so he gets that paycheck. And
Hmm.
so like at first when they did it, I was like, oh, that sounds crazy. But then I'm like, well, it's Sean McVay, Stafford's getting old. Like there is a reason for them to take a quarterback. Um, so initially I was like, okay, maybe a team that's as successful as them, I can maybe just, brush it off. Kind of like I did with the Chiefs that are still they moved up for
Hmm.
me, even though they made a pretty risky move in my opinion. And so I was like, you know what? I maybe I should. And then when I found out about that secret meeting, I was like, okay, this just reeks of like rich people making decisions for themselves. And I'm like, I don't think that was best for the team. And if I was a fan and I'd been doing draft prep on Ty Simpson, like he's how he looks like he could be good. I went back and watched a little bit more of him. He looks like he could turn into something, but how many times have we been tantalized by guys who don't have a huge college
Hmm.
career? My
Hmm.
team tried that. Trubisky was one of them. Like just because the tools are there, there's something to be said for game experience. And so I think that knocked them a lot. Um, that was the main reason they dropped for me. And then Max Clare, it's hard not to get excited about him with Sean McVay, but how many tight ends does a team need? I don't
Yeah.
understand. I said it's hard not to get excited about Clare, but it always feels like this team has 10 tight ends. Like I don't understand when you are so good at coaching up tight ends, even if there's really tantalizing talent out there, right? Even if there's a really exciting talent, don't you think you have other roster spots to address first? So it felt really weird. It felt really arrogant, and joke maybe on me. Stafford could get hurt. Ty Simpson could come in and lead them to the playoffs, and Max Clare could be tight end one for fantasy. I don't know, but it's but I'm like I they had to drop. I didn't know where to stop the slide, so I ended up at 5 because I don't think it necessarily ruins their team or anything, but they need to be
Yeah.
punished for what they did.
Yeah. Six for me when I was looking at like my tiers, right? And I have the Saints there at 7. Um, because I the teams I had below the Saints, because the New Orleans was kind of right there, and I gave them a B grade, and none of the teams that were coming up felt like they knocked it out of the park enough to jump them. So then that
Mhm.
made 6 kind of my natural landing spot for okay, for the team that we thought killed the first part of the offseason.
Yes.
They get to retain their coordinators, or in a way, Shieldhouse, they get to promote to offensive coordinator. They do Trent McDuffie. They get and attack the secondary. I didn't want to overreact and
Right.
then look and be like, oh, well, now I said they had the 13th best offseason. And the thing that was an oopsie on my part, both in my written draft grades and all the stuff we did on YouTube, was I didn't really give the Rams enough credit for using a draft pick for Trent McDuffie. And I guess that's just because like it
Yeah.
was technically like a surplus pick, even though it was their own.
Right.
Because when I do grades, I count that. I count if you traded your pick for a player, how do I view that trade? And obviously I view that as a home run trade. So like I gave him like a D minus in all my grades that I did, but really with
It
McDuffie, that should probably be like a C
should
minus.
be higher, yeah, for sure.
But I just hated that not only did they go with their backup quarterback and fourth string tight end with their first 2 picks, they walked into the draft with 7 picks and walked out having only made 5. They traded 3 picks, or I guess technically 2 picks, to move up in a round to get an offensive lineman because they want offensive line depth, but they bypassed that with the first 2 picks because they
Mhm.
wanted this quarterback and this other tight end. Um, and yeah, even if they're in 13 personnel, like you're taking off one of Devontae Adams or Puka Nacua and still sitting one of your tight ends, and you have all these guys on the field. So
Right.
it's weird, it's jumbled, but yeah, six is the low point here. Um, all right, let's get back to Baltimore because
Yeah.
I want to sort out this like top 6-ish area before we dive into the Chiefs Cowboys lines of it all.
Yep.
Um, the positive things about Baltimore, because I did say that they're getting an A for me. Oop, everybody just saw that again. Um, they get Ioane, like you said, a top 10 player at 14 overall. Now, the fit is also kind of funky because they paid John Simpson, and both those guys have primarily played left guard for the last like 5 years, both of their playing careers. So just penciling one of them in at right guard, like you can't just do that for fun. Um, Zion Young is the type of edge rusher they needed for sure. He's not the flashiest. I don't expect him to come in and get 8+ sacks or anything, but he's going to play good run defense. He's going to be tough. He fits the AFC North. Um, and then Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt, like those are good receivers that give them size and toughness and ball skills.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
so
gonna really
I,
sorry to cut you off, Simon,
yeah.
but I think this will be the year we really see if they've just been avoiding throwing the ball or if they haven't really liked the talent they have. Because with Surratt or Lane, one of them has to be able to play opposite Zay Flowers, and they should have
Yep.
a decent receiving core now. So now, is it coaching? Is it Lamar only wanting to run? Like, I doubt it. So like this is the year we might see them throw the ball more. That'd be kind of exciting. So
Yeah, two real investments at wide receiver in the draft and new coaching staff coming in.
yeah.
Um, yeah, this should be the year for their passing game. So I really like what they did at the top of the draft. Um, the interior of the offensive line is still a question. But with when you have when you have the quarterback who can handle the pressure, we've got targets for him to throw to. When you have a back who can run, although he kind of needs a head start, so like your interior shouldn't have questions. Um, I just think they vault these other teams for me. Where did you actually have Baltimore? I don't have that written down in front of me at this point. How
Uh,
far
they
down did you
they
drop them?
They were just at 9. And that was
Okay,
because, like I said, mainly because of the excitement of the Cowboys and Titans that I moved up ahead of them.
okay, okay.
So I just,
Um,
when they didn't draft a center, I was like, okay, that's a little bit of a punishment I can do, so I can allow teams to surpass them for that. But maybe that was over punishing. I also I would be okay with to find a more middle ground with the Chiefs there. I
yeah.
think they were a little bit aggressive. I could be persuaded into dropping them a little bit, even though I like that they went and got their guy. But
All right, so here's what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna let the people at home see these things happen. So we're gonna take the Rams. We're gonna put them at 5 since we don't have a consensus there on the Ravens, but we're gonna do Panthers at 1, Giants at 2. We'll do Chargers, Raiders 3,
yep,
4,
makes
and then we'll
sense.
do the Rams at 5. We'll stop the slide for them at 5 because again, 6 was kind of where I put them initially, not counting Trent McDuffie. So now I'll just do the math where I'm also counting Trent McDuffie
Sure.
being acquired for a draft pick. So we'll stop the slide for them at 5. And we'll get into our next tier of teams here. So we've already hit the Ravens. Talk to me about the Chiefs. You mentioned it. Might need to find a middle ground here because I have the Chiefs going down, and I have them at where do I have them? I have them at 12, and you have
Yeah.
them at 8. Um, I'll just do this quickly because I've done this on places already. I did not love their draft. I can understand it, but I just didn't love not going for the offensive side of the ball. I didn't love trading up to keep attacking defense because I thought they ran out of picks for what they needed. I ended up giving them a B minus my grade, but what pushed the Chiefs up for you? And wait, actually, I'm reading this wrong because we had the Chiefs at 8, so you also had them moving down. But how far down did you put
I'm
them?
no, I moved them. I moved them up. I think actually,
Oh,
technically,
there
didn't
they
I?
are. Six. I'm tripping.
Yeah, I
Okay,
had I
so yeah,
had them.
you pushed them up to 6, and they were at 8. So what made you move them up?
So I'll admit a little bias here. This is any other team did what they did, and it wouldn't have been as I wouldn't have been definitely probably not moving them up, right?
Hmm.
When a team like the Chiefs, who's done this or has been as successful as they have, and they move up to get their guy at corner, I view that as a savvy move. Like
Yeah.
you give up some late round picks by all means to get your guy because you traded away Trent McDuffie, you traded away Jalen Watson, so you still have Spags there. He needs the next guy. He gets the consensus top corner in the draft. That initially it didn't feel like an overpay. Maybe it's a little overpay, but in my head, again, I'm giving them benefit of the doubt because I'm assuming that they had thoughts that someone was going to take Delane before they got to their pick, and so they
Hmm.
felt the pressure to go get him, and so I kind of respect that. And then Peter Woods was a guy that I kind of liked, and I would have I would have been probably more excited for the Vikes if they took him at 18 when he
Yeah.
was still available. So I think coupled with my Vikings rage too, I see the Chiefs take a guy that the Vikings could have had. I'm like, oh, so they traded up, they got the best corner. Now they
Yeah.
get this Peter Woods guy.
Mhm.
So I gave a lot of benefit of the doubt, which is why I'm not going to, battle for them up here. Because they also didn't really address the offensive line, which I think was a misstep by them too. So I think there's a world in which they should get docked for that a little bit too. So, but at least initially, those first couple picks, I was like, here we go again. Now we have Mansur Delane, and we're going to forget about McDuffie and Charvarius Ward. This is going to be the
Mhm.
next guy for the next few years. It's an elite corner in Kansas City. That's kind of where my head got stuck, I suppose. So,
And you're of two minds with that, right? With the defensive back thing, because it's like all those guys. I mean, McDuffie is by far the highest investment in the defensive back room that they've had. Brian Cook was a second round pick. The other linebacker that they drafted recently, I believe, was also a day two pick. But like McDuffie was pick 22 or 21, 23, whatever it was, right after Kenny Pickett.
yeah.
Um, all these other guys, the undrafted and day three guys that they develop. So you're like, well, just do that every time, which is where
Hmm.
I land. But your idea
Yeah.
of, oh, well, if they're this good with defensive backs and they like this guy, that means something. And again,
Yeah.
I totally understand the process of saying we think we can get back to winning a Super Bowl through our defense before reshaping our offense. And yes, it sounded like from Delane's press conference when he said, "Sorry, Adam Peters, you missed," kind of thing. Like Delane might have gone to Washington at 7. It sounds like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and I'm trying to square my mind around if I can at least understand a team's thought process and they execute that vision, then like who am I to knock them? But at the same time, man, I don't know. Like if he's not there then and you want to go defense, take Ruben Bain at 8. If they
Yeah.
had done
Yeah.
that instead and they would have said, let's focus on the front, Bain and Woods, and then they have pick 74 still and they can take a corner and then they could take a swing on a wide receiver. I just look at the wide receiver room and I'm like, where is
Yeah.
this new juice coming from? How is this offense getting better? And for them, it's going to be through the run game. Um, Talk to me about, let's see. I mean, we both have the Cowboys and Titans making big jumps, so that'll be easy to land on at some point. Talk to me about the Saints. We landed on them at 7. I was the one that kind of even pushed for them to be in the top 8 in the 1.0. Where did you land on the Saints? Where did you end up putting them? How'd you feel about their draft?
Yeah, I thought I like the Jordan Tyson pick.
Hmm.
I think it's smart for them to start building a wide receiver room, especially assuming that um, you know, Tyler Shuck's first year last year wasn't a mirage. And then where I ended with them is because I initially was really excited about the Oscar Delp pick as well,
Mm,
athletic tight end with a lot of upside. So I was inclined to keep them there. But then the more I looked into it, the more I was like, wow, it's not a given. It's going to be a while before this Delp, if at all, is an impact
hmm.
player. He's not necessarily a help with the blocking. So I kind of got really excited and then I tapered off a little bit. And so then they were kind of another victim of teams jumping them that I felt were a little bit more exciting to them. But I don't think by any means they had a bad draft. And I like I said, I think Oscar Delp could turn into something significant. And that was their third round pick. I like that they went a defensive line in the second, like Kristen Miller. So
Yeah,
so they just had some nice picks that it felt very good to me. Maybe not
yeah.
above average, but very good. So
Yeah, and like I said, I only gave them a B, but they didn't. They hit good value. Um, the Tyson pick, like that one was gonna be, I was gonna be a little afraid to rank him high enough, but as soon as the team did take him somewhere, I was gonna be like, yeah, that's just a good pick because
yeah.
he's exactly the type of receiver that a team like the Saints could have used there, a team like the Chiefs could have used at their pick. Just someone that can at like 6'2", 200 pounds with some wiggle, like can
Yeah.
really make an impact as a
Oh
receiver.
yeah.
And Kristen Miller, I just love. And as that team is trying to get younger on defense, and Cam Jordan is finally leaving, and he's not going to be a Cam Jordan replacement. He's going to play a little more inside than that. Um,
Yep.
but just as they try alive in this defense and this defensive line backup, I really did like that. Um, And yeah, I did, but I didn't love the mid round picks, but Bryce Lance as a swing, as a guy who makes it down there on day three, people thought he was going to be a sneaky like third round pick. Um, to continue to really try to build around Chuck, I really understood that vision. Um, so yeah, it's just about how high we want to move some of these teams. So like when you look
Yeah.
at your eight, your 7 and 8, because the Chiefs at 6 would be moving up 2 spots. The Cowboys being at 7 would put them up 6 spots,
Hmm.
and the Titans getting to 8 would also be moving up 6 spots. I had the Cowboys and the Titans at 10 and 11, so not far off. I gave them awesome grades. I love their drafts.
Sure.
Everyone knows it by now. You know, Caleb Downs, great. Malachi Lawrence, great. For the Titans, I was surprised, but I really liked it. Cardinal Tate, Keldrick Falk, Anthony Hill Jr. Like, I really love what those teams. I mean, I gave the Titans an A+. I
Yeah.
loved what they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of how high we can push those teams up, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think I had a hard time, you know, it's funny because on one hand, doing a fresh rankings 1.0, you can move teams a lot higher because they're not
Yeah.
coming from anywhere, right? And then now
Yeah.
well, I do like our process, right? You build from where they're at, so it's more consistent. It makes it harder to make some big jumps, right? Like, so
Hmm.
I think I was kind of looking for that maybe a little bit more than I needed to. Because you said it, like Dallas had another really good draft. Their defense might actually be kind of good next year.
Yep.
Um, and they had one bad year of like we can't stop anybody. And then what did they do? They just addressed everything. They lost Micah Parsons, and they'll always get made fun of for that trade. But to be fair, after that, they have started to build around it, or to build back from that at all the positions, not just at edge rusher. So, and the Caleb Downs pick was great. He could have gone before they picked, and he was still there. And then like you said, the Titans A+ for sure. Carnell Tate was a great pick. Moving back up to get Keldrick Falk, who's 6'6". Like he's an insane person, and he doesn't play 6'6" all the time, if that makes sense. Like from
Hmm.
the clips that I've seen, like his pad level is really legit. So it's not like a guy that is gonna have a hard time getting low enough to make an impact in the run game. And then when he needs to be, he'll be 6'6". You can't throw over him, right? So like,
Be six
um,
six. Wouldn't that be nice? You just need to be. You're just 6'6" when you
Oh yeah,
need
I need to be 6'6" today. Sorry.
it. Everyone adjust your expectations.
Yeah.
All right. Here's what we can do. Because the Saints, yeah, I don't think did anything wrong. I think had a nice time.
Mhm.
But the Cowboys and Titans, I think, were awesome.
They were awesome.
So if we can keep the Ravens at 6, just not move them from where we had them in the 1.0,
I think that makes sense. That's a directly halfway between where we each had them. So
and then we go Cowboys and Titans, we give them
sure.
the big moves for the awesome drafts. And then 9, 10 in some order, we can go Saints Chiefs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That sounds great.
All right. What's the next I still have the Lions here in my top 8. Talk while I adjust this. Talk about where you have the Lions and how you feel about them.
Yeah, so I just had the Lions. I had the Lions in the top 10 still, so not too far from you. I thought that they did a really nice job. I think the Blake Miller pick was a great pick. I think the Derek Moore pick is a good pick, and I feel like they focused on defense again, which I think for them is really important because they have a legit offense when they have an offensive line, and we know that bringing in Cade Mays is going to help solidify some of that. So I like that they took I like that they use high draft capital on an offensive lineman and Blake Miller
Hmm.
to kind of help fortify that O line because they do need that for their offense to run. But outside of that, they don't need much else on offense. When the
Yeah.
offense is humming, Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like who do they? What other positions do they need? I would have
Right.
been very upset if they'd reached on a receiver or a tight end.
Hmm.
And so I think for me for the Lions it was kind of a sequencing thing. They took a offensive lineman where the value or sorry where the talent was,
Yes.
and then they just started filling in that defense, which we know that every time they bring in all these big names, they've drafted a lot of defense. They're kind of like the Panthers keep drafting receivers. They're trying to find they're not
Yes.
accepting or they're willing to admit that they haven't fixed it yet instead
Yep.
of being an ego, being stubborn and say, no, we don't need to. We need to get some more exciting 4-4 guys. No, they did the right thing there. So I think they just drafted really smartly. Where did we have them in the first one? Is 10 a move up for them? Oh, they were right at 10.
Uh,
They were right at 10.
yeah.
So I definitely didn't want to drop them. They were just kind of
Yeah.
a probably a product of the Titans and Cowboys just
Yeah.
knocking it out of the park. So
And I think that's fine. I think my grade for them might have even been slightly inflated just because it was such a clean and neat and there's that version, I have them
yeah,
and the Saints next to each other, right? The Saints, I liked what they did. It was unexpected. The Lions, I like what they did and it was expected. So I
yeah,
technically gave them a little bit higher of a grade. But and you said this with Blake Miller, like they went for need, but where there was value. So at 17, they got an offensive lineman, and they're executing a vision that I don't love moving Sewell over when they could have just drafted a left tackle, but they wanted to move Sewell over. Campbell said that. So they're doing that, and then they got a right tackle at value, and then they got an edge rusher at value before the drop off at either of those positions happened. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, so you had him at 10, and that's where we had him, right?
yep. I had
Um,
them just a couple spots behind you. I just kept them where they
I
were.
think that's
So
fine. Before I move off this screen, so here's our top eight. Panthers, slight move up, really good offseason so far. Giants, slight move up, good offseason so far. Chargers, Raiders, we haven't really talked about, but you guys know what they did. Akeem Mesidor and the Brennan Thompson, Mike McDaniel shirt off video that he wanted to do, and Mendoza to the Raiders, obviously, and then again the Raiders. I didn't love everything, but they go get they get Mendoza. That's the key.
yeah.
Rams question marks with their move, so they move down. But Rams good all around draft. Cowboys and Titans knock it out of the park. Um, just for the sake of talking about it, do you want to talk about what the Titans did and what you liked about it? Since we have them with such a big move here to eight.
I think we already kind of talked about it. I feel like they were really active in free agency on the defensive side of the ball, and they brought in Robert Saleh, so they're the right type of team to take a top five wide receiver. You have a
Yeah.
second year quarterback who you drafted first overall. This is the way you bring in talent around him, or try to anyway. And so it wasn't just that they got the best receiver in the draft; it's that they were positioned well to take him because they set up their defense. And then I like the Keldrick Falk pick because I think could have probably justified taking him earlier than when they did. So when they saw him available, they did the whole we're going to go up and get our guy. They moved back up into the first round, took him at 31, and it was really kind of those first couple moves. And then they did get a running back that you and I both like. We've been fighting over him in our fantasy drafts this week. So Nicholas Singleton with Pollard in a contract here, fantasy folks, you might want to go after him for dynasty. But either way, um, I just feel like they kind of like with the Panthers and some of these other teams, like they're making good decisions in the right order. It feels like where they're like they built nicely off their free agency. It felt like a smooth transition from here's the stuff we did in free agency. It was good. Now let's go make a big splashy draft pick. Let's get Carnell Tate and then go from there. So that felt big enough to me because he was clearly the top receiver in the draft. So
All right. So here is our tier two as it sits right now. I'm happy to lock in the Lions at 10. I think they did well. So I think your spot was good there. They stand pat. Um, so we still need to sort out the Chiefs and the Saints. The Chiefs I had down here at 12, and that's where you had the Saints actually. Um, so we'll get them in here pretty quick. Um, let's actually try to sort that out. Should one of them be at 9? One of them should probably be at
one
9,
of
right?
them should be at 9. Yeah,
All right, so let's see. From our looking at our 1.0, that would be the Chiefs going down one spot. That would be the Saints going down two spots. Um,
I feel like I feel like if any team's worthy to go down, it's probably the Chiefs. I feel like
mhm,
the Saints did the more stable thing. So
yeah.
I think we should put the Saints at 9, Lions at 10. And then would you give me the Chiefs over because you had the Texans at 9? Would you give me the Chiefs over the Texans at 11
I can give you that, but let's talk about the Texans too, just to
for sure?
get there. So here's the Saints. Everyone's getting to see how everything is working today. I'm just gonna let it happen. Saints go to 9, Lions at 10, Chiefs at 11. All right, I know I can get rid of the Cowboys and the Titans, so just to create a little space for me here. All right, so here's the Texans. Here's what I liked about the Texans. Um, they did D'Amico Ryan's things. D'Amico Ryan's and that identity and the identity of what the team did is just all over this draft. I didn't love the Keelan Rutledge pick initially. Um, I even said this like during the over under show with Ben. Like the last thing they can do is just take another guard in the first or second round and muddy things up. But then it was pretty clear that he's gonna actually be their center. I'm like, oh, so they're just gonna be like mean and like push people into the dirt as hard as they can with anybody that they can. And suddenly that just unlocked everything else about what they're trying to do with their offensive line. Um, so I love that. Caden McDonald getting him in the in the second round, going up to get him as really the last piece of the defense that they haven't really figured out since Ryan's has been there. And they've tried, right? They've like I'm sure I can feel just from the like late spring veteran defensive tackles they've been bringing in that they've tried to do other things and it just hasn't landed. But now they go get a guy to be like an actual young foundational piece as a explosive run stuffer in the middle of the defensive line, not just a
Right.
plugger, not Dominique Orange that you get in the fourth round. No offense, that was mean. That I didn't actually intend to
Wow.
do that. I didn't mean
Attacking the big
I
citrus.
actually didn't mean to do that. That was really funny.
It
But
sounded very planned. It sounded very
it
rehearsed.
honestly was not. I did hate what the Vikings did in the draft, but it actually was
Yeah,
not that
yeah.
intentional. Um, because there's two types of run stuffing defensive tackles, right? There's the two gapper,
Mhm.
right? I guess oh no, there's two. There's the two gapper who can just sit there and hold his spot and be there right or left, however you need him, because he's not trying to go anywhere. And then there's Caden McDonald, who could do that because he's gigantic, but he's also explosive out of his stance with hard hands and can just punch the offensive lineman back 5 feet and then be in the backfield. And he doesn't do it with like Ed Oliver or Grayson Halton, like knifing my way into the backfield with speed. He punches people in the head and knocks him down. And so to get Rutledge and then McDonald in the first and second rounds just felt like, okay, this is identity, this is need, but this is just bringing dudes in who are going to fit what this team wants to do because that's the way their whole defense plays. And to bring a little of that to the offense at center,
Yeah.
I think is really cool. And then
Yeah.
Kamari Ramsey, even on day three, is just like a fun little chess piece that Ryans can continue to move around the defense and do stuff with that backfield that
Yeah.
they've remade the last 2 seasons. So I really like what they did. Um,
Well, the way you
it,
talked about it made it more exciting because I just wrote that they took a
anytime
bunch
you
of
can say
defensive
people
guys.
punch people in the head, that'll do it.
Yeah, yeah, that got me a lot more fired up than when I just, yeah, okay, the Texans got a bunch more defensive guys. They're gonna have a great defense forever as long as Ryan's there. Like I thought about it in like this is mundane, this has happened before. So I didn't I think I dropped them a couple spots. I wasn't planning on moving it, but that was again by way of people hopping above them.
Hmm.
I did initially, like you said, knock him for the Keelan Rutledge pick. I didn't know they were going to move him to center. I don't know where I missed that, but that does make a difference because everything I was reading about Rutledge is that this is going to be another depth piece guy. Like,
Yeah.
and so at that point, I was like, is that really the guy you want to spend your first round pick on?
Hmm.
So that's why I had no problem letting other teams hop them.
Yes. Hmm.
But knowing that, that does make a difference. And then like, the way you talked about punching people, I think that was inspiring. So I,
Bunch of people does it. Yeah, it's funny because like Rutledge, I've never even seen play center, but like, and this is part of like selling the pick a little bit. Like he was on an interview like the day after the draft and he was like, I practiced center every single day in college. Like we did it every day at practice. I took reps at center. And like, I don't know,
interesting.
maybe he's lying. Maybe he's
He's got,
extrapolating and he was
I
talking
mean,
about his freshman year.
he's got 0 snaps by alignment on PFF the last
Right.
three
Yeah.
years.
He's never
Literally no
actually done
center
it.
snaps in game.
And it's like almost exclusively right guard, I'm pretty sure. So like he like didn't really show that he's moved around a lot in college. And I don't even think
Oh
his
yeah,
tape is like perfect.
right. 100% right guard. He had two left tackle reps in 2024. Otherwise, all right guard
And you
reps.
know those are
Everything.
like kneel downs or something, or
Exactly.
like eligible third, six offensive lineman type thing. Um,
Exactly.
so that's why when I saw the pick, I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, are you drafting Teller's replacement already? Are you moving Ed Ingram to the bench after you just gave him $12 million? Like, but no, it's just like, nope, this is the center. And like all their fans were like, this is our center. So like it seems like that's happening. And so
Yeah,
immediately that just unlocks things for me. So,
that's fair.
all right, I had him at 9, you had him at 13. Do you want to? I mean, you don't want to bump him for the Chiefs, right? Should we stick him at 12 and bump the Broncos a little? I mean, I say bump the Broncos. Neither of us have the Broncos that high.
No, I have no problem putting them.
Yeah, let's
Wait,
put him
where
at
do we?
13.
Yeah,
Let's put
let's
him
do
at
that.
Or
No,
I
let's
mean
put
12, 12,
12. Yeah,
12.
put him at
That's what I
12.
meant.
Yep.
And
Yep,
that's
that's
where I
fine.
had the Chiefs. So that works. That makes sense.
Yep.
That's moving them. I took them away from where I had them on consensus. Where do we have them in the 1.0?
They're in the they were oh no, I lost it. I think they were at 11 or
They were at
12.
11. So I mean, that's moving them down a couple spots. That feels tough. But I mean, when it's kind of just the nature of
Yeah.
other people are doing stuff. We like what the line. Do we like what the Lions did enough to have them above the Chiefs and the Texans?
Well, so we had the Lions at 10 and the Texans at 11 in the 1.0. So I think because the Lions were already above them by a spot, I
Okay,
think
they
that
can
that
stay.
feels
Little
right.
little Sainty. Okay.
We might have a little bit too much. Do we have too much Chiefs bias? I don't know.
I mean,
We
I had them at 12, but it is what it is.
we maybe I have too much Chiefs bias because we had that's the team out of this group of team. That's the team we've probably talked the most negatively about in terms of what they
Well,
did.
I did, but you really liked what happened. And
I
again, this
also
is our
yeah I did
consensus rankings. You
I
you
did
had them
like
at
what
you had
happened.
them at 6.
I like them at 11, them at 12.
Okay. All right. All right. Because yeah, we'll leave a little room for like maybe Rutledge. Maybe we're over our skis, sticking just saying he could be center. I think that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
And dude, we have all the same teams here, so we just got to work
Yeah.
through what we want. I mean, we both have the Broncos at 15, so we're gonna put the Broncos at 15. That's the rule.
Yep.
Um, Broncos didn't
Perfect.
have a lot of draft capital, but I at least like that, they trade their first round pick for Waddle. There wasn't a lot they could have done in the second round where they were, so they moved down. They get a defensive lineman. That's great. John Franklin Myers was their only departure in free agency, so one out, one in. Good. I gave him a C plus, not a lot for them to do. Um, you have the Patriots at 14. I had them at 16. You had the Falcons at 11. I had them at 14. You have the 49ers at 16. I have them at 13.
Yeah.
Where 49ers,
That's
Patriots, Falcons, how do you want to sort that out?
yeah, the 49ers drop is I think you mentioned at the outside of the pod that weighing the first and second round decisions slightly more um because of the fact that they're supposed to be more of the impact ones, right? Like
Hmm.
it's hard to knock a team for taking a guy in the fifth or sixth round because a million other teams could have taken them earlier, right? So it feels like value almost anybody you take for the most part, right?
Hmm.
But when you trade up to get Dejon Stribling, feels like a reach. I know the Niners are great with wide receivers, but that's almost partly why. Like I don't know you need to go get if you don't need to go get one. I didn't dislike the rest of their draft, so this was more of a like I'm gonna drop them. And then I got really excited watching Zachariah Branch at Georgia.
Hmm.
And so when the Falcons took him right after they took AJ Terrell's brother, like I love
Hmm.
stories like that too. And Avion Terrell is a great corner. So like
Yeah.
I got really excited with the Falcons, and I was like, Falcons are doing this fun stuff, and then the Niners are taking this receiver randomly, who sure he could be fantastic. So, but and then I started taking things personally when I'm reading like people knock the Falcons pick about Branch. It's like, well, I mean, they already have Jahan Dotson and Olamide Zaccheaus. So I was like, what? Like the two guys that have been around forever who are fine players but have always been the same level of impact on
Yeah.
a game.
Yeah.
Like, no, this Zachariah Branch looks way different than both these guys. He
Hmm.
is much more dynamic and much more
Hmm.
exciting. And so, um, he's exactly the type of player that a left-handed quarterback can hit streaking across the middle on a drag route and turn it into a 50-yard touchdown. Like, I'm just envisioning, whether it's Tua or Penix, like hitting this guy. So a little bit maybe overinflated excitement about Branch and a little bit over penalizing for the Stribling move up for the Niners. That's why there was that flip flop there. Um, and the Patriots, I thought they did well. I was curious to hear what you said about Caleb Lomu. I was prepared to let you kind of talk to me about the level of impact that he could have.
Yeah.
Because on paper for me, it's like, well, Will Campbell, I don't think he's done.
Right.
I don't think he was a bad pick, and I'm not writing him off. I think he's fine. But I also feel like it's smart for the Patriots to recognize that Will Campbell was not perfect last year, and they might need to look at that spot or keep that there. I don't even know if Lomu's going to play left tackle. Maybe he's going to be the right
Right.
tackle, like there, or swing tackle or whatever. Like there's options there, but it felt like the right thing to do because the Patriots are looking at themselves as we're a team that made it to the Super Bowl. We have one of those rare elite quarterbacks, and so I liked the pick of Lomu for that. but I was prepared to see what you thought about because you're the offensive line guy. I want to make sure that I'm not overvaluing that pick. So that's why they are at 14 though. On paper, I feel like, yeah, this feels like a good thing for them to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, but also fortunately, it turns out I'm like the biggest Caleb Lomu fan in the world. Um, because once we hit March, he was down in like the late 20s on all the mocks. So basically, once all the coaches got involved
Yeah.
and once the media mock drafters and draft people started hearing from teams about their actual boards, that's when Lomu started going from like the mid-teens to the late 20s on all the mocks and the boards and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and then we hear all this stuff right on draft day that like, does he have the mentality to really play offensive line? And people, I guess, think he's just like too nice, like a little. Nobody said the S word, but just like a little too nice to be an offensive lineman. And I don't see that at all,
Interesting.
man. Like and like here's where that translates, where I can track that. He's not a road grader as an offensive lineman. He's not like Fano on the other side of him doesn't have the like brute strength to really just get in there and mash people, but he has the tenacity, the like play style where if he's got a mismatch, he's putting a guy down. Lomu just doesn't do that in the run game. He's like a wall off and move out of the way kind of person, at least on tape. But in pass pro, like he's chopping dudes at the hands and trying to knocking them on the ground and landing on top of them. So like I didn't fully get that, so that must be something in interviews. Um,
Sure.
and then you watch his little video of him when he gets drafted, right? And he's like doing a dance and like throwing the ball around, and everyone else is like screaming and being all tough and stuff. So that's where that thought is. But I love his game. I thought he got better at his biggest need from his sophomore to his junior year, which was play strength. He still needs to get stronger. And that's why, in terms of impact for the season, I think he might be a backup for most of 2026. I think they drafted him for the talent and the upside. He's young. And this is okay. We signed Elijah Vera Tucker, who's
Mhm.
never been healthy for more than 2 years in a row. So like maybe we try Lomu at guard, like if need be. Like he
Right.
starts as a backup and maybe he's a talent play at guard. Um, Morgan Moses is 45 years old or whatever he actually is. So like maybe this is a plan for 2027 to make Lomu a right tackle or Will Campbell. I think he's fine at left tackle, but maybe in the back of their minds they're like, maybe there's a chance Will Campbell actually has to play guard. In which case, Lomu. I think Lomu's an insurance plan for 2026 and a an upside play for 2027.
Okay.
That's what I
Okay.
think, and I like him, and I like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
back
listen,
back
Gabe Backus for them as an edge rusher in the second round, they needed
Yep.
that. That was great. Um, I don't know if they needed, another tight. Well, actually, they got a tight. Hunter Henry's getting a little older too, so starts as a number two. So I
Mhm.
feel like they were playing the long game in this draft more than
Yeah.
getting something that's going to super impact them right now. But
Yeah.
Akis might have, 6 or 7 sacks this season and show up big in the playoffs. I could see that.
Well, and what you said about Lomu as an insurance play, like that's okay at the tail end of the first round.
Yeah,
Like that,
100%.
like it's not like he was pick nine or something like that. So
Right.
I think that that doesn't knock them for that. So okay. Anyway,
And then the
that's what.
Falcons I liked 14. I liked the branch pick in him in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
third round. I think was perfect when people were talking about him in round two. I was like, that's a little dicey. But I did a mock draft for them on NFLmocks.com and I had him right there at that pick. So I feel pretty good about that. And I love Avion Terrell. So I
Yeah.
do really like what they did. For me and the Niners, I really like that they created essentially an extra draft to a couple draft picks for themselves. They walked into draft weekend with 6 picks and a gap between 58 and 127. And then they ended up with 33, 70, 90, 107, 127, 139, 154, 17. So they really moved around the board well, created extra value for themselves. I didn't like the third round running back, but like they're always going to take a third round running back. So you just kind of have to factor that in. Um, and then getting the big one for me was Grayson Halton, who I actually mentioned earlier. Get him in the fourth round. That guy is going to make an impact this season. And they needed pass rush, and they got it in him as like a 6'1", 290 rocked up penetrating
Yeah.
defensive tackle. So I really liked what they did. And yeah, the wide receiver thing, this dribbling thing, I do think it's true what people have been saying that he was actually higher on boards than we knew. He was always going to go a little earlier than we thought. And when you
Yeah.
look at his archetype, yes, there were more talented receivers, probably like a good 7 or 8 wide receivers that I liked more than Stribling. But when you look at they wanted a 6'2" guy who runs 4.4 or faster, if you factor that part in, it was like him, Ted Hurst, and Chris Brazzell. And Hurst and
Hmm.
Brazzell have questions too.
Yeah.
So I could see how they landed there. And they traded back. That was initially they were at 27 and then they moved back to 33 and they get him. So if that was
Yeah.
the guy they wanted, they moved back and created more capital for him. I thought that was
Yeah, that
pretty
makes
good by
sense.
them.
That makes sense. Well, it sounds like I would rather have the Falcons up there in 13 or 14.
Hmm.
So why don't we go Niners 13, Falcons 14, and then Patriots, yeah, right after the Broncos.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That sounds
I
good.
I didn't get to say this earlier, but the reason I had the Broncos behind the Patriots is because Sean Payton took a fourth round running back, and nothing against Jonah Coleman. I can't stand Sean Payton. So anytime he does something that's like on par with the cliche that is Sean Payton, I'm gonna dock him for that. So because I
Yeah.
did factor in the Waddle trade like you did, but we like you mentioned, it's sometimes we forget. That was good that you brought that up because I didn't factor that in for the Rams at all. I was just completely blinded by the fact. But for the Broncos, I was like, for some reason, oh yeah. Well, if you consider Waddle a first round pick, would you rather have
Yep.
Waddle or any unknown guy? Obviously, you'd have Waddle, right? Even
So
the Colts.
they would have ended up with the running back. They would have ended up with Jarian Price in the first round instead. So like
Yeah, seriously.
then they would have been really far down. But no, the Broncos walked into the offseason needing one thing, and it was explosiveness on offense. So like find a way to make that happen. And they did it. And it
Yeah.
just so happened to come, earlier in free agency, but they used their draft pick to do it. All right, so there's our 9 through 16. That might have been the fastest we worked through the back half of the top half of our power
Yeah.
rankings, Josh. So
That's
Saints at
impressive.
9, Lions at 10, Chiefs at 11, Texans at 12, 49ers at 13, Falcons 14, Broncos 15, Patriots 16. So that's our top half of the 2.0. And we are going to scroll on down and
Look
we
at
don't
that.
have any teams missing right now, Josh. That's the other big thing.
That is
We
wild.
had the same top 16 teams, just ordered a little differently. We didn't have too many big tier jumps. And we're kind of in the same boat here. I think there's just we might have one team, but look, we have a lot of teams the same in a row
It's just
here.
the Bills and the Packers, and that's the very end of this tier. So like,
And you're actually higher on the Packers than me, so I know that's not going to be hard to move them down for you.
no, it's not.
Um, the fact that we have 17, 18, and 19 the same
Is lights
is
out.
kind of a miracle.
That
Um,
feels fantastic.
so
I was
let's,
worried. I was worried about the Jets. I feel like you always hate the Jets and try to move them
yeah, you
down.
loved what the Jets did in the offseason. You were all about it.
I
You said,
did,
dude, I've
and
been
I'm
waiting for oh God, I can't even remember his name now. Who's the OC they hired that I hate?
oh
Frank Reich. Frank
yeah,
Reich.
yeah.
You've been waiting for Frank Reich to be a head coach again. You're Minnesota Vikings head coach 2027, Frank Reich, over here.
Oh God.
Uh Jets move up one, gave him a B plus. Um, David Bailey, I get. The pass catchers, I like getting both of those guys, Sadiq and Cooper.
Yep.
What corner did they get? Did they get Chris? No, they got D'Angelo Pons, so that's
Yep.
nice. Who got Chris Johnson? Why am I blanking on that right now? Out of
Um,
nowhere. Did Miami get him? Miami got him, right?
yes.
Okay, so that's why
I
they're.
I I wrote Chris Johnson as something a team later on should have taken.
Oh
Part
yeah.
of why I docked them. So
Okay.
that's
All
why I
right.
couldn't think of the team.
Um, Commanders home run draft and Sonny Styles. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yep.
Um. So yeah, I mean anything on the and Miami, when you have 1,700 picks, it's pretty easy to hit on a few of them, but they got good
Yes.
players, I think, up and down with Chris Bell, Jacob Rodriguez, Kyle Lewis as later round pick guys.
Yep.
The Proctor thing is interesting, but I'm happy they're playing him at left guard, and that's where things are starting. I think that's perfect
Yep.
for him. Should they just have taken Vega Ioane if they were just gonna put Proctor at left guard? Maybe that's something I've been thinking about more the last couple of days.
Yeah.
But they probably want Proctor to be the right tackle in 2027. So Ioane is not going to be that. So if
Right.
this is still, I think Proctor has all pro potential at left guard, but also they're going to maybe try him at right tackle. then I guess I can see it, especially because they moved down. Anything on 17, 18, 19, Jets, Commanders, Dolphins, you want to say?
Nothing, just to repeat some of the things that I also want to make sure I've said on here. Like Sonny Styles was a fantastic pick for them at 7 for the Commanders at 18. So they got, and I like that they grabbed a receiver. So that they had a really good draft. The Jets, I like that they got Kenyon Sadiq. At first I wasn't happy that they traded up for Omar Cooper, but then I realized that was just because the Jets is where offensive talent goes to die, it feels like. And so it feels a little bit I was like, I can't knock him for that. This is a good draft for this team. And then, like you said, with Miami, they're just building out that roster. It was fun. It was fun to see. I love that they, you know, my first thought was, wow, they could have had Caleb Downs, but like this isn't a team that is trying to get one impact player. This is a
Yeah,
team that's trying to, like you were talking about earlier, right? Like you're trying to get a team that's not two all pros and a bunch of muck that's going to not take you anywhere but 8 and 9 seasons for 5 years, right? So that they really did attack the roster, and so it'll be fun to see how many of those guys actually stay on. I mean theoretically, two or three of them could be the only ones still on the team in 3 years, but
right.
at least on paper right now, they'll look back and they said, well, this is what this is what we were able to do. We were able to get more value, more picks, and get a widespread look at our roster improvement, and they get credit for that. If the players don't pan out, it's whatever because they did what any team should do in that situation, and so I feel like they get some credit for that. We'll see how it turns out. And then Chris Johnson, of course, that was a great pick for talent wise too. If they can keep him around for a second contract, he might be there with a team that's contending to for the division at least or something in 3 years maybe. Who knows?
And then what did the Commanders also do? I know we mentioned Sunny Styles.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Oh, Joshua
They
Josephs,
got
I
Joshua
love.
Joseph. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love Josephs, man. I really like him. And then Antonio Williams in the third round. So you talk about a team that
Yeah.
didn't have a couple of picks because of Laramie Tunsil, but Joseph's, I thought, and again, I was one of the only people on this. I thought you could have taken him like in the third round and it would have been fine. They got him in the fifth round, which was like more about consensus. But Antonio Williams, I thought could have been a second round player, and they get him a little bit later than that in the early third, I think. Um, so missing those second and fourth round picks from Tunsil, but they get guys that I thought value wise could have been up there at positions of need. Just a really good intersection of need and value, I thought, without reaching and hurting themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and you could
I was gonna
argue,
knock. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna knock him for the Ethan Kaliakmanis pick in the 7th round, the quarterback from Rutgers that was also Minnesota. But then I was like, I can't knock a team for taking a flyer on a 7th round guy. I don't
yeah,
I never saw it when he was here in Minnesota. I never saw it when he was at Rutgers. I don't know why teams think he's going to maybe amount to something, but I hope I'm proven wrong. But I almost knocked him for that. I was like, I can't knock a team for the 7th round pick.
I was gonna say you could also knock them for the center thing, not taking one, but something they snuck in kind of towards the end of, maybe like week 2 or 3 of free agency is Chris Paul. They re-signed their left guard from last year, so they're bringing back 4/5 of their starters on the offensive line, and teams have shown us in the last 3 years if you have decent investments at the other four spots,
Yeah.
teams are willing to, and teams find a way to make up for like less talent at center.
Yeah.
So whatever they end up doing, if
Well,
it's going to be Allegretti there, they at least
they,
have their starting guards surrounding him and their tackles are back. So I think they're in
yeah.
good shape.
No, I knocked him for that too. They did take a center, but I think they waited too long for them. They got that
Oh yeah, who'd they
Matt.
get?
They got Matt
Oh,
Golden.
Golbin, right?
Yeah.
Michigan
Yeah.
State. And you know what? That was
But they
fine.
waited too long for in my opinion, that would like to your point, they if they were going to take one, they should have taken one earlier. So,
Yeah. But when you don't have a second or fourth round pick,
right.
at least they came up with a plan. And Goldman was a guy that was in that like top 150 range, kind of as that like third, fourth tier of center. So that wasn't too bad. There's a different team that also needed a center that completely missed. We'll talk about them later. All right. So that's 17, 18, 19. The Bears, I had a 22, you had a 20. That and 20 is where we had them last time. The Eagles, I have at 20, you have at 22, so we just flip-flop them. Um, we have the Bucks in this range, 21 and 23. The Steelers in this range at 21 and 23. So we just flip-flopped a couple of these teams.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how you feel about these guys.
Yeah,
Pick
so I'll
pick
start
anyone
with
that you want to vie for, from 20 to 23 or so.
yeah, the Bears are probably my least like I'm least convinced with that. There was a little bit of bitterness there because they got Dylan Theinman, a safety that I would have been happy for the Vikings to take
Oh yeah.
again, among a million other players we could have taken. And I might be the biggest Caleb Banks fan when we do this in November, but for right now, he's just a guy that wasn't one of these other guys I wanted. So, I wrote should have been a Viking on my notes. Like that
Yeah.
that was it. So,
Yeah, that hurts.
um, but for the Bears, I think I watched one of your it was either one of your draft grade videos or one of your previous pods where you mentioned something about um the Ben Johnson like drafting these guys like it's kind of getting a little stale. Like I didn't understand the tight end pick. Um, as much. So I think I could get on board with dropping him there because um, Philadelphia the Mekhi Lemon pick is really good. I don't it's weird because I don't know what their offense is really going to look like this year. It's hard to tell. It's hard to be super excited about it, but we know that they have a history of making the right picks. And then for the Bucks, it was hard to decide how far to move them up because they got one of the best values in the draft in the
Hmm.
first round with how far Ruben Bain fell, and so um, you don't hate that at all. And they were in that wheelhouse where a team might have been enticed by like Kenyon Sadiq or
Yep.
Kai Lemon for them or something like that. And so I like that they took the guy that was like, this is a talented player who should have gone a lot of picks earlier. We're going to
Hmm.
take him now. So that was a smart pick, and I like the Josiah Trotter pick as well. Like they
Hmm.
made smart picks. So for the Bucks, it was kind of like how far to move them up. I eventually stopped their rise because they didn't go to O-line until round five, which is something that I was a little bit bothered by because, like my Vikings and Christian Darrisaw, Tristan Wirfs has been battling injuries and he's only getting older. Like they could need to make sure they have depth on the offensive line. So I feel like that should be a position of need for them, maybe more than it was. Um, but that's pretty nitpicking at that point. That's just trying to figure out where to place people. So I'd have no problem moving the Bucks up a little bit higher and dropping the Bears a little bit. Um, your Steelers, I really liked what they did. I like that they have a wide receiver room now. You guys have more than one wide receiver
Weird.
for the
Hmm.
first time in 3 years. Isn't that wild? You
Hmm.
have two guys that are names, and then you have a rookie coming in. Um,
Ugh.
I liked, the Eli Heidenreich is a fun pick for a seventh rounder. I know that this isn't good analysis, but he's exactly the type of guy that's going to make a name for himself as a Steeler for some reason. Like,
Hmm.
you just have your gut instinct about that sort of thing. And then initially I was like, Drew Aller is a reach, but then I was like, I don't think he's actually a reach for this team because you still have Rodgers never going to let you know what he's going to do. And even if he does, it's not exciting and you don't really want him there. Will Howard, I don't remember hearing from you that he's been knocking on the door for more playing time. So, um, any quarterback for them outside of the first two rounds, I think, is a good pick because they are in desperate need of a quarterback. As long as they didn't reach into the first round like the year they took Kenny Pickett, right?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
as long as they didn't do that again, I think it was smart. And then so I started thinking about that, went back, watched some more Drew Aller, and I was like, okay, he's got some tools to be like I obviously he's gonna be better than Ethan Kaliakmanis, right? Sorry, I just wanted to say his name again because I pronounce it pretty well. So
When you said it, man, I had no idea who you were talking about. I was like, he's making up names right now. This is Brian Cook with no picture in the rankings all over again.
yeah,
Um,
I think and you're usually harder on your Steelers, so I think you should let me give the Steelers a little bit more credit.
all right,
Let's
fine.
put them up at 20. Can you put them up at 20?
Oh wow, that's high. That's high. That's
I'll
moving
put them
up.
above the Bears. I'm not afraid right now to put them above the Bears.
That's up 5 spots. You want to move the Steelers up 5 spots for Eli Heidenreich, who might not even make the team?
5 spots
The
is a
kick
lot.
returner in round four and the fullback in round five. You want to do that?
All right, let's drop the Bears one, move the Steelers to 22, and then you have to convince me who goes in at 20.
Okay.
But
So wait, the Bears can go
wait,
where?
no.
The Bears should go to 23. I think we should just knock that down.
Okay, okay, that's fair. My logic wasn't making sense because we both have the Eagles and the Bucks in the same order, so it
Yeah.
wouldn't have made sense for me to then decide I wanted the Bucks up at 20. So okay,
As long as the Bears are at 23, I actually don't care what else happens. Um, all right. The Bucks, here's the thing for the Bucks. I think they made literally the best pick of the entire draft. Out of the 256 picks, if you rank all of them based off of need, fit, and value, and like, maybe you're cheating a little with it being a first round pick, but that's where you get the best players, obviously.
Right.
Getting Ruben Bain, who's a top five player in the draft, who's a perfect Todd Bowles player, getting him at 15 for a
Yeah.
team that desperately needs pass rush is just too perfect. It's too perfect. And like it's been talked about to death at this point. But the way he got off the couch with his sunglasses on and just like grabbed the hat and just like hasn't had a haircut in 6 months, it's just like this guy is gonna have 14 sacks this season, including the playoffs, and the Bucks are gonna go to the NFC Championship game or
Yeah.
something. And it's like I couldn't get over it. I was jumping up and down at that pick, man. That made me so excited. Um, the Eagles getting to 20 for me, yeah, just like classic Eagles, right? Like a player
Yep.
is falling and not a player that we connected to the Eagles once in the process, but was like
Yep.
Howie Roseman's like, that's a like top 12 player and he's falling. Let's go get him.
Let's
And
get him.
and so they
Get him.
did. Um, and what did the Eagles do? They did something on the offensive line later, right?
Yeah, they had well, they got Eli Stowers, which was also kind of exciting, and they got
Yes.
Markel Bell in the third.
Oh yeah, Mark Hippo. And like that's actually a little bit more of a question mark than it would have been in years past without Stoutland. Oh, but they trade for Jonathan Grenard. Sorry,
Yeah.
Vikings.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
like they couldn't retain Jalen Phillips. We thought maybe a pass rusher for them in the first two rounds, but they want to go pass catcher, insulate from the AJ Brown trade that's gonna happen. But then they
Yep.
go get an edge rusher who can get double
Yep.
digit sacks this season and play good run defense. So like they did great. So I think I think they need to be 20 and 21.
Okay.
Um, because I think the Steelers a little bit were also kind of um actually hang on. How much do you want to weigh Grenard? Because here's what I'd like to do: Bucks at 20, and
Okay.
then I could give you Steelers at 21 and Eagles at 22, which is what you have. Um, depending on how much you want to factor Grenard and what you really think about that for the Eagles.
Oh man. I want your Steelers above the Eagles.
Okay.
Grenard is great. I don't think he was so great that it was like devastating that we traded him. So
Okay. All right. So we're going Bucks at 20 for the best pick. They also got
that
Keontae
feels right.
Scott, which
Yeah.
like they've gotten some dudes and like helped that secondary in the last couple of years, and he's
Yeah.
also just a Bulls player. Um, and they were the team that took Billy Schrauth, right? The Notre Dame offensive lineman.
Yep. They
Um,
took him in the sixth or
and
fifth,
he's
sorry.
and he and he's totally fine. I think he can play a little bit. I don't think you want to like try and bank on him becoming a starter at any point, but like he can come
Yeah.
in and play, and he has a lot of experience. I think he's a fine pick. All right, cool. So Jets, Commanders, Dolphins, Bucks, Steelers, Eagles, Bears. Let's set out spot 24 here. You have the Packers at 24. You had the Bills going down in the
Yeah.
draft. So this is the team that you talked about right at the beginning where you were like you didn't like the value play that they were doing moving things around. Talk to me
Yeah.
about that.
Like like so you're gonna talk me out of it because you're gonna say that getting TJ Parker, a first round talent at 35, is too good a value. But the Bills, they're not the team that does this like dance to get more picks and like their window is closing. Their window is closing when Josh Allen is no more. And that sounds really dramatic. Like I'm not saying he doesn't have like a lot more years left, but
Just had his
like,
first child. God dang, man.
but
40
he's
when he's no
but like
more.
this team's been so close for so long that like I just really was bothered that they didn't take, like they could have gotten, for example, here's an example. They could have gotten Chris Johnson, the
Mhm.
cornerback from, and I'm not saying that that was been fitting the most need for them, but I feel like you said with the Eagles, almost like here's a player that should have that was a top 10 talent that fell to us. We should take him. Like those are the
Mhm.
moves I feel like the Bills need to be making because they have one of those all-world quarterbacks that can overcompensate for some of the things. So I was like, why do they keep moving down? Like, so TJ Parker is great. And first round talent they get in the second round. So that feels like good value. And so the rest of the draft, I'm sure, was fantastic, and I'm probably hating on him too much. But I'm just like, you need to you need to get like the best talent. I don't know. it's I didn't really argue that well, but I was just really bothered by that. It's like you need to be grabbing the best talent available. I don't understand what you're doing. Why aren't you taking? You should be taking like the Ruben Bain, the whatever the
Hmm.
closest thing to a Ruben Bain Ruben Bain would have been to them. The pick that fell too much and they grabbed him. I was like, yeah, don't get cute at the end of the draft. You're not the organization that gets cute and finds success. You're not the Niners. You're not the Eagles.
Yeah, the
Take
history of
the
the whole like
best.
Keon Coleman and moving around the first round hasn't been kind to them.
Right,
What was their
right.
original pick? 27 was that was their pick, right? The Chris
Yeah,
Johnson
that's what I
pick.
mean. They could
Ooh,
have
so it's
gotten.
especially salt in the moon for you because that was the pick that was Chris Johnson.
Yeah, so it
Um,
could have been Chris Johnson. It could have been, even an offensive line like Caleb Loma was there. Peter Woods was there. Like even Keldrick. I mean, they could have gotten any of those guys. I get that, but I don't know. I'm probably overreacting, but it just
um,
felt really stupid.
here's the thing though. They were another team. Let me see all the picks they had because I wrote this down somewhere for them, but I didn't keep it. Um, they were another team that essentially had a gap in their draft picks because of the trade for DJ Moore, which again I
Mhm.
factor. They got a wide receiver with their
Yeah,
second
that's
round
true.
pick. But the trade down, all the trade downs essentially gave them a first, a second, and a third round pick because they had the third pick in the second round, the 30th pick of the second round, and then the second pick of the fourth round, and the 25th pick of the fourth round. So that was and they also had the 26th pick in the fourth round. So they essentially ended up with a first, second, third, fourth round, two fourth round picks, which really I do think is going to help them in the long run. And
Yeah,
TJ Parker was like maybe my top three favorite pick for them at pick 25, and they got him at 35.
yeah, that's true.
And that yes, Chris Johnson would have been nice. Don't forget about my boy Mad Max, first round pick last year, who was injured for 2025. So if he's healthy, but they get a good depth corner in Davison Igbinosun, who is never going to have like the true ball skills and stickiness to be like a real starter,
Mhm.
but or really just stickiness because he has enough ball skills and he's physical enough that he can be a great number three or number four. I think he's going to be a killer special teamer right away.
Mhm.
And then if somebody gets hurt, you're not worried about him coming in, right? He's kind of like what veteran James Pierre was for the Steelers for the last 2 years, where if he has to come in and play a few snaps or play 4 games in a row, you're going to be fine because he's not going to get totally burnt over and over again, and he's not going to miss tackles, right? That's a big thing when
Yeah.
your depth corners are coming in. You're worried about it, like, okay, you're going to give up the catch. At least bring the guy down, and he's going to do that. Then they make an offensive line play. They lose an offensive lineman to your Vikings during the offseason. They make another play for a wide receiver. They try to get younger at lining back and a linebacker and Caleb Elam-Zor, who people like. Um, and then Jalen Kilgore has like a fun other like secondary piece. So for me with them, it was creating that extra draft capital
Yeah.
through the trades, and TJ Parker truly like in September, Parker was like a slam dunk top 15 pick, and then everything with Clemson went awry this season. And I thought 25 for him would have been great value because I think he's going to come in right away, be a good run defender at 6'3", 260, whatever he is. But I think he's got real pass rush upside, and they haven't had that in a while. In terms of a guy like because I think we know what Rousseau is at this point. So
Mhm.
they need a real person to be an edge rusher for them. And it's fun that Bradley Chubb is there because he's that same body type and he's not going to give him the 10 plus sacks, but that's a guy for Parker to be next to and learn from a little bit. Um and so I think that could be like a slam dunk pick. I really like that one.
All right. Well, that's a lot more convincing than me thinking they were stupid for not taking a guy that I
And
wanted
listen,
them
like
to
Chris
take.
Johnson's great, and if Maxwell Harrison's like hurt again this season, um, and Chris Johnson is the player that like we think he can be, yes, it might not work out. Um, but I think going up front, I think a lot of teams that did that because I think this was considered a good secondary class, and I
Mhm.
think a lot of teams that needed the work up front focused on the secondary. Like you look at the Bears, like the Bears
Yeah.
needed people up front, and they just did not do it.
No.
Um, so I like that the Bills made that the focus, but also still managed to get the guy that I would have just taken that 25 and been like happy as a clam with.
All right. Well, that was pretty convincing.
Where did you have the Packers? Where did you actually put, or well, you had them at 24. What
I
what
had him at
what
24.
and is that where we had them?
No, they were at
They were at
27.
27.
Yeah,
So
you
what
kept
why'd you
them.
move the Packers up?
I just started looking into Cisse a little bit after they drafted
Hmm.
him, and I started to like that pick. You'll have to tell me if their pick at center, Jaeger, what's his name? Jaeger. I'm sure the nicknames in Green Bay are going to be crazy for Jaeger Burton. Is it Jaeger or Jaeger?
I don't even know who this is. Who are we talking about?
Oh, they took a center from Kentucky in round five.
Yeah, I
His
don't.
name is
Nope. I got
Jaeger
nothing.
Jaeger
I got
Burton.
nothing.
But no, it was mainly their first two picks. I know they didn't have a first round pick, but they had Brandon Cisse, cornerback from South Carolina, who I liked a little bit when I watched him. Chris McClellan as the interior defense. The rush defense was fine last year, but
Mm,
it still needed to improve. And so I thought that those two picks were smart. They do need to focus on defense. I know they lost Romeo Dobbs in the offseason, but they've had a carousel of receivers. They need to figure out who they have still. So I don't think this was the receiver where we need to yell at the Packers for not taking or this was the draft where we need to yell at the Packers for not taking a receiver. Um, so I like that they led with defensive picks, and I think that it just felt like a smart draft. At this point, I was probably also overvaluing like I was trying to figure out how far to drop my Vikings and the Jags, and then the teams below them. I didn't really want to move up. It honestly like the only other team that's on here that I really think maybe I was a little harsh on is the Colts because I feel like didn't factor in the fact that one of their first round picks is Sauce Gardner, right? Like,
yeah.
so that's another one of those. So coming up in the next tier, I was there, but and then I also didn't know like I didn't know how bad to punish the Cardinals
Hmm.
for their draft, so I put them at 31, and the Browns had a really good draft, but I was
Yep.
like, Simon's gonna keep him at 32 for some reason. I know he's gonna
I
find it. So I'm actually proud of you for putting. Hey, how
I
about
moved them
this?
up. I moved them up.
I'll give you the Bills at 25. You want to put the Browns ahead of the Bills? You want to put the
I do
Browns at
not. Nope,
24?
I don't.
Nope. Okay. Okay. I was just impressed. I was like, I
Don't do that.
tempered my expectations on the Browns, and you actually gave them a vaulted leap up into almost relevancy. So
Um, yeah, the Browns had an awesome draft. Um, and they were also just kind of like the Bills for me, just the beneficiary of I think everybody else at this point just got a little bit worse. We'll sort that
yeah.
out when we get to that page. But I had the Browns and the Bills kind of hand in hand because I think they knocked the draft out of the park. The Packers, the more I like look at their draft and think about it, I'm like, I do like what they did. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the Bills and Browns should be literally tied at the hip and like not have this tier break. So maybe we can move the Packers up 3 spots. I would also be happy to just move them up 1 spot and put them at 26. So what do you want to do? Let's stack the Bills,
Let's
Browns, and Packers in these next 3 picks. But who should be here at 24?
Well, I think your argument for the Bills is better than mine to
Okay.
to drop them. So let's put the Bills at 24, and then um because I have no problem, hating on the Packers, and I actually wanted to move the Browns up more. It's
Okay.
funny the thing that actually kept me from moving them up higher is in the most Browns fashion. They did draft like they got Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston, who I think are great receivers, but they also are the two receivers that had the most issues with drops. And I'm like, this is the this is the team. Like these are the guys that go to the Browns, and then this is what happens, and then they don't pan out. They're such high talent. But that was like conspiracy theorist brain. Let's put the Browns at 25. I
Okay.
think they earned that because they traded back, got a lot of good value in the first
Yes.
round. They took
Yeah.
Spencer Fano, which Spencer Fano was a smart pick. And then they took two receivers. They are still building out that offense,
Yep.
and I like that they're not going to say no, we're fine with Jerry Judy
Yeah.
and whoever else. The Browns did a really nice job in all seriousness.
And
So
Emmanuel McNeil Warren all the way at
oh
58 is
yeah,
crazy
it's
value. Like,
wild. I forgot about that. Yeah, he that's an epic value pick.
and like for this team that had Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah as this like gem find, who I think we've known for like a little while that his career was gonna be done, but to kind of officially, I don't know if he literally turned the papers in, but like he's talking about it, like officially is done playing football. I EMW can play a lot of different positions, but if for this year he's just down there in the box, like kind of next to Schwessinger, just like running around causing havoc, like. God, and
That's
it's so annoying, man. Fano in Cleveland and Ioane in Baltimore is so, and like Jacoby Lane in Baltimore while we're here talking about my favorite players going to these teams. It's the worst. It's absolutely horrible. Okay, so anyways, here's 17 to 24. This is usually a really messy tier for us. We got here pretty easily. We probably
God,
talked about it more than
that
we
looks
needed to, but
so clean,
Jets,
so
Commanders,
clean.
Dolphins, Bucks, Steelers, Eagles, Bears, Bills. Only one team from a different tier got up here for us, and the next team's gonna, be just a couple picks later. Um, so if we're sorting out 25 and 26 here, that's gonna be easy. That's gonna be get the Steelers away. The Browns, who you had at 30, I had at 25. They're gonna get that pick at 25 though. We're gonna have the Packers at
Yeah, we got to move. Yeah,
26.
yeah.
So they get to move up one. I think that's good. Um, you guys are just seeing me take away teams so I don't get confused. All right, so now let's get into some of these bad teams. Do you want to start at the bottom or do you want to keep rolling down here at 27 like we're at?
Well, I did the classic with the Vikings and the Jags. I did the classic like, how far of a drop is too far of a drop?
Hmm.
So I'm not really going to advocate for either of them to for either of them to stay up there because even like you know like the big citrus you already made fun of earlier, right? Like
And I like him. I
not the
like him. I like him for what he is.
well, right, but the second defensive tackle
Yeah.
after the first one was your first round draft capital pick who's battling an injury and who is kind of billed as not a standalone star player, but like a complementary piece. Like he's not, I think if he comes into his own, he could wreck some games, but I still don't know. And even our like, even Jake Golday, who the linebacker that people were
Hmm.
feeling like was a really good pick. Like he's not bad, but he's definitely got some flaws. He's not super, you know, you could go through the tape a little bit. I didn't like all of his like shimmying into his tackles and his pad level and height and stuff. And so even that pick that was supposedly kind of a slam dunk, I think he could be pretty good, but it's just nothing, it doesn't feel like we did
And like
anything
with the way
right.
Minnesota drafts these linebackers and edge rusher hybrid types, like he kind of, I'm a little worried they're just gonna be like, yeah, he's Andrew Van Ginkel insurance. Like he's just
Yeah.
gonna be Van Ginkel's backup and like
And
succession plan.
right.
Which like I don't know if that's, I mean it probably like almost like a Leo Chenal type, like probably the smartest way to use him, but it's not the highest ceiling play for him either.
Right.
Um, yeah, knowing how far to drop these teams, because like where I have these teams, I had the Vikings going down 11 spots. I had the Seahawks going down 8 spots. I had the Jags going down 13 spots. And for those three teams, I think what that was for me was I had them in the middle of and they ended up in the middle of the 1.0. And that was just because like I didn't think they got worse in free agency, but I don't think they helped themselves either.
Right.
So then when you don't really get any better in free agency, and I actively think you had a pretty bad draft, that's gonna
Yeah.
weigh pretty heavily. It's
Yeah.
it's it's
Yeah.
in it's in math. It's like there's a big difference between multiplying something by one and then by zero, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
in free agency, they multiplied themselves by one just by kind of staying the same, and then in the
Mhm.
draft they multiplied by zero and like got dropped all the way down. I'm feeling that I'm getting a little. I had the literature call at the top of the pod. Just
Yeah.
sign me back up. Who needs a substitute teacher for a week while I'm into it?
The
Just kidding.
professor. That's the new nickname for you, the professor. I like that.
You know, man, and one mixtape that was my jam for a while. Um, all right. Anyways, enough of that. So and yes, we need to punish the Cardinals. I had them moving down 2 spots.
How about
But I'm happy to put them even below the Packers further.
maybe
Now, go ahead. I think what you're going to say is something that I'm going to be thinking about. So go ahead.
so maybe I'm harsher on the Cardinals than need to be because they did get a really, really good player at 3 overall. Do I
Hmm.
think they should have spent a pick on Jeremiah Love? Absolutely not. And that's part of the
Hmm.
reason why I buried them. But at the end of the day, he is one of the most talented players in this draft. So can you really be mad at a team for taking that? I mean, we just gave Philly credit for taking Mekhi Lemon because you know what I mean? Like
Right.
sometimes you just take the best player, and if you feel like he's a generational talent that a lot of people think he could be, then then can you really fault a team? Like I don't think they were in a position to like like look at what happened with Genti last year, right? Like you have, just because the player is elite doesn't mean the team around him is set up for success, even if the team thinks they might be able to have success with him. So I don't
Hmm.
know. I could be in favor of moving the Cardinals up there, dropping the Vikes, Jags, Seahawks a little bit further. Um, I don't know. Were you going to talk about the Cardinals, or were you going to talk about the?
So I was going to mention the Colts and the Bengals because they're the one team here for me that I kind of just
Mhm.
have moving down by circumstance. Like the
Yeah.
Bengals, we talked about at the top with Dexter Lawrence. Like I would have preferred they had stayed at 10 and taken Bain or Downs. But like Lawrence is a fine player, and then like Howell in the second round is fine. Takario Davis late in the third is fine.
I
Connor Liu getting their future center in the building for a fourth, I think is good. The Colts getting, it's not the linebacker I would have picked for them in CJ Allen, but like they needed a linebacker big time. First round pick on Sauce Gardner, who you just hope stays healthy. Um, and then AJ Hulsey is going to be like a starter probably right away for them. Um, the Colts for me just like and this was a product of not having a first round pick, they still need pass rush, and they did almost nothing to really help that.
Mhm.
Um, but I did like for what the if I just grade on the things they did and not the things they didn't, kind of like for the Bengals too, honestly.
Yeah.
And maybe down here in this tier, it's more fair to do that because I've already punished them, right? They're already down here.
Right. Right. Right.
But you can argue for the Colts and Bengals, they were down here anyway. So I'm not because we had them at I mean, the Bengals we had at, let's see,
They were at 30.
30, 30, 29, and 30, right?
Yeah.
These two teams. So I really just had them each moving down one. Um, so
Well,
so what I was gonna say before I started rambling, the Jags, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Vikings, we actively like disliked what happened, right? So
yes.
could the Colts actually move up a little bit, move two spots up each? Just for not messing up? Like should like should
Yes.
that or do we look at the math of how these other teams kind of move themselves down and should we try to tier that a little bit and maybe even just sit the Colts at 29 and 30 where we had them?
No,
Or do you
I
think they should go up?
I think they should go up, and I'm remembering now because I had the Bengals up at 25. I'm
Hmm.
starting to buy into the Takario Davis hype. I know he's not a perfect prospect, but he's kind of exciting,
And it
and
was early, but man, he's exciting. I wanted the Steelers to
yeah,
get him in the fourth so bad.
right.
That was another one of these players. The Bengals get Takario Davis, who I've been looking at this for the Steelers for like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And then Ioane, the draft sucks, man. I hate the draft. Stupid
Yeah,
draft.
I think just 6'4", 200 pound corner is with 4.4
It's
speed is
it's so
wild.
cool.
It's super cool. And then I was thinking with the Colts, like, you want to talk about a seventh round running back? You guys got Eli Heidenreich. They got Seth McGowan, and not saying that he's going to change the game for the Colts, but in a way to compare them to the Seahawks, we gave them benefit of the doubt. But Jadarian Price was a reach in my opinion, and I feel like they were kind of chasing the NFL frame. Like a lot of guys, if you look at their report, do they like running backs that fit that height and weight and stuff? And that's one of the pros that Seth McGowan has. So like I'm not saying that he's better than Jadarian Price or anything like that, but I'm saying if you're just chasing the archetype of the or the sorry the body type of a certain running back, right? You can get that elsewhere. So I have no problem bearing the Seahawks. I wanted them at 32, remember, after the last one. So
You did. You did. Yeah. Yeah. Big anti Seahawks. Worst off season of any team that won the Super Bowl this year.
yeah,
Um, all right. So
it's
I'm
true.
fine with that with the Colts and Bengals. They technically get to move up a little bit. I think with the picks they made, it's good. And they got good veterans with their first round pick. So even if I would have preferred in the Bengals case to have made a first round pick, you
Right.
know you're getting a player who has been good. Now Lawrence, it's not that easy because he's gonna be in his 30s. They had to give him an extra contract. He's coming off of an injury. But like they got a real player who was an all pro and almost
Yep.
a defensive player of the year candidate just a couple of seasons ago. So the
Mhm.
last four spots going to the Jags, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, and who am I missing? Jags,
The
Cardinals,
Vikes.
Seahawks, and
The Vikes.
Vikings, who I think actively had poor drafts. I'm
Yeah.
I'm happy with. Um,
Let's put the Cardinals at 29 because
okay.
that's like
They
a
at least
split
got
the
a good, probably the best player.
Yeah, and that
Well,
splits the
it
difference
should be the best player. He got him at
between
3.
right. And that splits the defense between where you and I each had them. And then I feel
Yeah.
like I think it's got to go Seahawks, Viking. Or no, we both had the Vikings above the Seahawks. We go Vikes third. It doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah, it's just because the Vikings at some point like stopped the slide, right? Like,
Right.
because I do think Caleb Banks is a good player, man.
Right. Right.
I just would not have taken him there with the injuries. Like that's just scary. But at least for that, if we're talking about those 3 teams, and the Jags' first pick was a blocking tight end, they could have gotten 2 rounds later. The Seahawks took a running back, they might have gotten 2 rounds later had they waited. The Vikings at least got a player at a position of need. And I messaged you, and we have a lot of Vikings people on box score. I was like, sneaky, I feel like the Vikings could go defensive line. And Austin even did that in a mock. He took Peter Woods. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it was talked about a ton, but you guys were talking about, Redmond and Tyrion Davis. So like there's guys there. So I like the upside swing. And if you just told me in a vacuum the defensive line room was those 2 guys, a healthy Caleb Banks, and then Big Citrus, I'm like, that's a stud
That's a
defensive
line.
line.
Yeah, that's
But
a line.
corners are needed, a center is needed, a safety is needed. And by the way, Banks has broken his foot twice since September, and he's over 300 pounds. Is scary, scary stuff. But I think
Yeah.
putting them at 30, Jags at 32, Seahawks at, or wait, you want the, no, you wanted the Seahawks after the Vikings, so right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go Vikes, Seahawks, Jags.
All right.
Wow. That's going to be a climb of epic proportions after Power Rankings 3.0 and the undefeated Vikings are bursting into the top five.
The undefeated because it'll still be the summer when we do that. Is that what you're talking about?
Pretty much.
1 preseason game, and Kyler Murray goes 6 of 8 for 85 yards and runs in a 4-yard touchdown, and we're like,
Yep.
we're here, we're
Yep.
back, we made
We've
it.
arrived. We've arrived.
If we do the summertime vibes one, and we're just like the Seahawks move up 20 spots because they won the Super Bowl, so they're fine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Just
what's gonna be the dumbest when we just like readjust for like the 1.0 or something? Like the Seahawks obviously are gonna be up there. So there's the
I
bottom
think
8. Browns, Packers, Colts, Bengals, Cardinals, Vikings, Seahawks, Jags. Obviously the Bills. I mean, although their vibes, I still
I need
contend
I
the
need
whole
the
coaching
Pan
thing is weird.
I need the Panthers to do something dumb because I still don't believe in Bryce Young. So I think this could all be a
Yeah,
moot
we get
point.
to the 1.0 and we're just like, oh yeah, their quarterback is still the size of a fifth grader.
Right,
Like
because
that's
they've had a pristine offseason so far, but they still are running Bryce Young out there and start the year. So I don't know.
when we get to put when we're doing vibes, and then we're just like, by the way, the Falcons, their starting edge rusher should be in prison and is not. So like, let's put them at 32. Maybe that conversation
Yep,
comes
yep.
up.
Yep.
It's so stupid, man.
Uh,
Anyways, all
yeah.
right, let's not go too
Anyway.
far down that road. Um, and then we're just like, do we really believe in the Cowboys? Should they be 7? I believe in the Cowboys. I'm here for it. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm here for that.
Once again, there's our top 8: Panthers, Giants, Chargers, Raiders, Rams, Ravens, Cowboys, Saints. Let's get out of here before we get in trouble. Thank you to Josh for all your work putting this together. Yeah, hopefully we can get a off-season 3.0, just vibes and storylines, how we feel in the middle of the summer. But this was the major point of the off-season. So these are the 8 teams that we think from a consensus point of view, but as you can tell from our, left and middle columns, we're pretty much aligned on these are the teams that we think hit the best off seasons in terms of new coaches, changing out their roster, free agency draft. So really good stuff by these teams. Congrats on winning our offseason power rankings series. But thank you, Josh. If you're here on YouTube, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, check out the Box Score Network YouTube and all the pods. Tons of draft content is still going to be going up on Box Score Network. Here you'll get your weekly shows. We'll have our fun summertime stuff, but we're going to be getting ready for 2027 draft over there on Box Score as well with Ben and his crew, and a lot of draft driven stuff is going to be over there. So make sure you're checking that out. And if you're here, audio everyone day one, we appreciate you as always. Thank you all so much. Have fun and be safe out there.